began on New Year's Day in my 32nd year of being single. Once again, I found myself on my own and going to my mother's annual turkey curry buffet.
The plot of Bridget Jones was actually simply stolen from Pride and Prejudice. The book was originally a set of columns, and I wanted it to be a proper novel that turned the page. So I thought that Jane Austen's plots were very good.
Every year she tries to fix me up with some bushy-haired, middle-aged bore, and I feared this year would be no exception.
The book pushed a button of loneliness with people, but it also made them laugh, because that's what you do, you know. You have to do something to stave off the existential despair.
I have two choices: to give up and accept permanent state of spinsterhood and eventual eating by Alsatians, or not. And this time I choose not. It's pretty extraordinary right now, a sort of revolution of sorts, and I think Helen Fielding captures the daily challenges that arise in a woman's life as a result of that. Instead, I choose vodka and Chaka Khan.
Truth is, there has to be a bit of you in a character, a major character, for you to be able to create her. But I think the truth seems to be that that little bit is also in an awful lot of other women.
And it all began, of course, with some very irresponsible emailing over Bridget's non-existence.
When I first read Bridget Jones's Diary, the book, I just laughed like an idiot and thought, this is very funny, and this is my life and Helen's life and so many other people's life, and this is very brave to put this down.
We'll persevere with resolution to find a nice, sensible man. We'll put a stop to flirting. First thing tomorrow.
A lot of 30-something women secretly terrified as to why they hadn't found the right man, but nobody daring to say, look, I think I'm a scary, tragic spinster.
Are you staying at your parents' for New Year?
Yes. You?
Oh, no.
It's kind of a mystery to me why so many women have related to it all over the world, but I think it's something to do with the gap between how women feel they're expected to be and how they actually are. So I think the reason that people like Bridget is the reason one likes one's friends. Nobody wants a friend like Natasha, who's Mrs. Perfect and tall and thin with thighs like a baby giraffe and a real bitch. What you want is a friend who's human and vulnerable and flawed like you are, and that's why people like Bridget.
Her vulnerability is captured so beautifully in the book. I mean, it's extraordinary, the honesty that comes from all the characters' experiences. You rarely see that.
It's delicious. I have to say, it's most incredible. The main thing, I think, is just that Helen's an incredibly funny writer, and, you know, the same story in the hands of a million other writers wouldn't work. I think she's just got an incredibly sharp eye.
All right, Cleaver, outside.
I'm sorry? Outside? Should I bring my dueling pistols or my sword?
It's the story of a girl finds true love but doesn't recognise him, falls instead for false love, and then eventually realises her mistake and goes back to the true love.
You're looking very sexy, Jones. I think I'm going to have to take you out to dinner now, whether you like it or not, okay?
Daniel Cleaver is a classic cad, as they used to be called, or bounder. Terribly charming, terribly sexy, but a real underneath. And I think an awful lot of women will recognise this character.
Tell me more about practicing French kissing with the other girls at school, because that's a very good story.
Bridget is definitely prone to falling for the wrong guy, for bastards. And that's what's lovely about the film, that it's revealed that that's not necessarily an irreversible condition.
It's about her finding, specifically for her, what's going to make her happy. Is it true that she wants to be in a union situation with a man? Is that going to do it? Or is that just satisfying her mother's expectations of who she should be?
Why don't we see if Mark fancies a gherkin?
Mark Darcy is the sort of guy your mum wants you to go out with. You know, Bridget's mother's always going, Mark Darcy, darling, he's terribly rich, divorced. And he is dull initially, pompous, arrogant, not very attractive.
I'm afraid I'm a bit hungover. Wish I could be lying with my head in the toilet like all normal people.
Yes, well, perhaps it's time to eat.
As the story progresses, she realises he has real worth.
Oi!
sorry, the mic's not working.
He just keeps finding her in these absurd situations, and there's a comedy about it, which I think makes her very noticeable to him.
Welcome to the launch of Kafka's Motorbike, the greatest book of our time. Obviously, except for your books, Mr. Rushdie, which are also very good.
This is the problem that starts up between them. Whenever she sees him, she's intimidated, and it makes her even more awkward and klutzier. And the klutzier she becomes, the more sort of haughty and aloof he becomes, until you get this dramatic dynamic which just seems to exaggerate.
Mark's a prematurely middle-aged prick with a cruel-raced ex-wife. Babette was a fat arsehole bag who spends her time bossing me around.
That's one of my favorite things about the script, actually, is how each encounter gets worse and worse and worse in terms of him finding her in the most vulnerable situations, which I suppose emphasizes how he does actually accept her the way she is.
I mean, there are elements of the ridiculous about you. Your mother's pretty interesting. And you really are an appallingly bad public speaker. And you tend to let whatever's in your head come out of your mouth without much consideration of the consequences. But the thing is, I like you. Very much.
Every girl who I've spoken to who tells me about Bridget Jones starts off about Bridget Jones, telling me about the diary entries of alcohol, cigarettes, and food intake.
At least now I'm in my 30s, I can hold my drink.
Oops. When I read the book, I was tremendously desperate myself. And I read it and I thought, gosh, this is like aspirational stuff for me. She has 2 boyfriends in a year. You know, she has quite a long relationship with Daniel Cleaver, really.
Bridget Jones, wanton sex goddess with a very bad man between her thighs.
But then, you know, he is Hugh Grant. He is hugely good looking. So she gets to poor Hugh Grant, which is great. And then she meets the love of her life by the end of the... She fulfills the New Year's resolution. And I thought, well, this is, you know, miles away from my life. I thought.
It's also wonderful to watch her journey towards self-acceptance, towards discovering who she is. And I think everyone can understand that on some level.
I'm king of the world! Hey!
Best comedy is based on pain. Actually, there's quite a painful heart to both Four Weddings and a Funeral and Notting Hill. It's love gone horribly wrong. Someone actually quite suffering. And I think that the fact that Bridget's sort of suffering really in this film is what makes it funny.
Unfortunately, he just happens to be my boss, Editor-in-Chief Daniel Cleaver. And for various slightly unfair reasons relating to this year's Christmas party, I suspect he does not fantasize about me.
It's the slipping on the banana skin syndrome. I think, you know, it's the thing that makes you cry can make you laugh. I think the two things are extremely close together. Mother, I do not need a blind date, particularly not with some verbally incontinent spinster who smokes like a chimney, drinks like a fish, and dresses like her mother.
The humor that she applies to the challenges that she faces every day is admirable and entertaining. And I don't know, her vulnerability is a very attractive quality, the way that she handles it.
Now, what are you going to put on?
This?
Oh, don't be silly, Bridget. I am Bridget's mother. Never get a boyfriend if you look like you've wandered out of Auschwitz. My role, I suppose, is to increase the mayhem. The sex is still very surprising. You know, the other night, quite unexpectedly, I was just dozing off and I felt this huge...
Bye, Mum.
My character will say anything that will make her feel better.
Introduce people with thoughtful details, such as Sheila enjoys horse riding and comes from New Zealand. Daniel enjoys publishing.
Sort of like a Greek chorus of twits that sort of trip about in the background and cheer and give absolutely hopeless advice at all times.
Friends of yours? She's quite a paradox. She is quite clearly klutzy. There's something of Lucille Ball, if you like.
Go, 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 go!
Okay.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, that seems to be about all we've got time for down here in Lewisham.
She's also quite articulate and quite quick.
If staying here means working within 10 yards of you, frankly, I'd rather have a job wiping Saddam Hussein's. Resolution number 1. Ooh. Obviously, we'll lose £20. Number 2. Always put last night's pants in the laundry basket.
A woman today feeling, you know, she's reaching her sell-by date is a sort of almost like a taboo thing that no one had quite dwelt on before in mainstream literature, or certainly not in the last 20, 30 years.
We'll find nice, sensible boyfriend to go out with and not continue to form romantic attachments to any of the following: alcoholics, workaholics, commitment phobics, peeping toms, megalomaniacs, emotional f***wits, or perverts. Society's projections of how success for a woman is defined and has been through past generations. And, of course, they're fed further by our mothers and our friends who say, oh, wouldn't it be nice if...
So, how's your love life?
One of the things that has pleased me very much about the success of the Bridget Jones books is the fact that the word singleton has started to be used instead of spinster. And it is ridiculous that in this day and age, when there's so many good reasons why a woman might be single in her 30s, she doesn't have to marry to have a good life.
Why is it there are so many unmarried women in their 30s these days, Bridget?
Suppose it doesn't help that underneath our clothes, our entire bodies are covered in scales.
We're post-feminism now, we've been through all this, and, you know, everything should be completely equal. And yet, for some reason, it's the sort of undeniably unequal thing. It's the one thing you can't eradicate with any amount of correct thinking, is that boys in their late 30s are happy as Larry, and girls single very often aren't.
You really ought to hurry up and get sprogged up, you know, old girl. Times are running out. Tick-tock.
It's wonderful on one hand and really, really challenging on another. Trying to decide how much of yourself you want to commit to each arena, and we're presented with the ceilings now of what you can accomplish in terms of contributions socially in the arts. It's equally revered that a woman should be the cornerstone of a nurturing situation.
What are you doing tonight?
Actually, I'm busy.
All right. Well, that's a shame. I just, well, I thought it might be a charitable thing to take your skirt out for dinner and try and fatten it up a bit. Maybe you could come too.
However much we think we've moved on from ideas of marriage and, you know, being a socially desirable thing, it still obviously does seem to matter a hell of a lot to us, and especially to some girls in their, you know, a certain age. And equally, I've seen a lot of girl friends of mine, or friends who are girls, you know, sort of cave in and go for the consolation husband, which is almost a sadder scenario than Bridget.
I realized that when I met you at the turkey curry buffet that I was unforgivably rude and wearing a reindeer jumper that my mother had given me the day before. We all notice this as we get older, that if you fall in love or you, you know, something very painful happens in your life, that you realize that your maturity doesn't do very much to help you. Perhaps, despite appearances, I like you, just as you are.
In Jane Austen's day, there was still the same preoccupation with dating. It's just human nature. But then the rules were very clear. And what Bridget finds now is that everyone's trying to stick to the rules, but nobody knows what the rules are because everyone's operating to a different set.
Well, that is, of course, the major reason I'm so thrilled to be living in Britain today.
And then, of course, there's media projections of what the paradigms for beauty in our generation are, which we aspire to meet because we assume that that's what's considered desirable. Daniel.
Bridget?
Do you love me?
Shut up or I'll do it again.
Do you love me?
Right. You asked for it.
In the age that we live in, women have so many images of perfection thrust at them, and so many different ideas of what a woman could be. She could be perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect career woman. And what tends to be neglected is human qualities. So Bridget Jones is funny, she's warm, she's kind, she's honest. But those sort of qualities are not often celebrated in the media, and they tend to get lost alongside the value of having a bottom like 2 billiard balls.
If actually do, by some terrible chance, end up in flagrante, surely these would be most attractive at crucial moment. However, chances of reaching crucial moment greatly increased by wearing these scary stomach-holding-in pants, very popular with grannies the world over. I am the intellectual equal of everyone else here.
Ooh, it's like a whole theory of short fiction and of the novella, you know?
You've got Bridget, who really is loquacious. She doesn't know when to shut up.
I mean, I could be wrong. What do you think?
Do you know where the toilets are? Huh?
You've got Daniel, who's very witty and very flippant.
So, how about a drink at my place? Totally innocent, no funny business, just full sex.
And that would lead you to believe that he's shallow, but actually he's probably miserable and lonely and desolate as well.
If I can't make it with you, I can't make it with anyone.
And you've got somebody like Mark who will not speak unless it's absolutely necessary, unless he feels that the topic is worthy of him.
So?
And how do three people like that communicate with each other?
Darcy? What brings you here? Oh, right, yeah. I should have guessed, shouldn't I?
You know, I've definitely done too many nice guys in the last few years, and it's frustrating because, you know, people always say, well, is that all you do? And actually, ironically, in the old days, pre-Four Weddings, I used to do mainly villains.
Bridget?
I did, of course, worry that Colin would kind of win the film. I comforted myself with the fact that I thought my character had more juicy lines. I counted them.
Is that Blue Sue?
I think she's extremely vulnerable, but at the same time she's very funny.
So why do you want to work in television?
Because I'm passionately committed to communicating with children. They are the future.
Do you have any children of your own?
Oh, Christ, no. Yuck.
I think there's something hugely appealing about underachievers who are trying very hard.
Well, she loves you, really. You love each other. It's only a temporary glitch.
Is it? Joan's parents are a sort of subplot, and their romantic problems run through the film, and sort of counterbalancing Bridget's.
What on earth are you wearing? You look like a common prostitute.
Yes, well, that was actually the point.
Bridget's mother's an interesting character because she comes from an older generation. She was brought up in the same place with the same set of values. So whatever she does, if she wants to go out with a ridiculous orange-faced lover, that's fine. She doesn't lose her confidence.
Hello, Julian.
My dear, you and your mother could be sisters.
Whereas Bridget is from the media age and, you know, the global village. She has all these influences and different ideas about how she should be thrown at her. And that's what leads to the confusion. She's like a little magpie. She's, well, I'll be a Buddhist, or I'll be a businesswoman, or go out with him, or what should I be?
What do you think of the El Nino phenomenon?
Flip. I think basically Latin music is on its way out. I don't know that we're better off if we just have more to be PC about, or more to consider and think about, more rules to apply. Bridget Jones for Sitter Britain, searching for tuna.
The key thing I thought she had was the first time I was in a room with her, she made me laugh very quickly, and I thought that's good. The second thing she had was an outer sort of vulnerability, and very soon I realized an inner irreverence.
Isn't it terrible about Chechnya? Isn't it terrible about Chechnya? Chechnya.
She said, you know what, if you were to choose me and we didn't get this right, and we didn't get the accent right, and we didn't get the mannerisms right, we are so busted.
Sorry. I come from Texas, and it makes me cringe when I see films where people do like a generalization or a characterization of a person from the South rather than actually doing the work and getting behind where it comes from and doing it properly. Message, Mr. Cleaver. am appalled by message. Skirt is demonstrably neither sick nor absent. Appalled by management's blatantly sizist attitude to skirt. Suggest management sick, not skirt.
When I talked to Hugh about the character, he said, hilariously, I just don't recognise this character. You know, who is he? And then I said, oh, come on, you know this character.
I've known Helen for some years, and I remember I once told her a story which involved me calling someone a dirty bitch. And then when I read the novel, there is Daniel Cleaver doing exactly the same in a sort of similar context. And so there's even a tiny bit of me in that part.
Apparently I used to run around naked in his paddling pool.
I bet you did, you dirty bitch.
I can't comment. I don't know you well enough to tell you whether or not he's pulling your leg. Chances are he's pulling your leg.
Shut up or I'll do it again.
The character of Mr. Darcy in the book was written around Colin Firth. Pride and Prejudice had sort of stopped the nation here in the UK, and we all fancied him. And so she set the character, she based the character of Mr. Darcy on Colin Firth playing Mr. Darcy. So when it came to casting the film, we kind of thought, well, it can't be anybody else, really.
No, not as such. I felt strangely detached from it, which is ironic, really, because I feature in the book. My name's mentioned in the book. And I kind of had to make some rather elliptical connections around back to myself. And I think it appealed to me, the very irony of that fact.
Did I really run round your lawn naked?
Oh, yes. You were 4 and I was 8.
That's a pretty big age difference. It's quite pervy, really.
Yes, I like to think so.
People will think, I love the book so much, the film can never live up to it. And that will be an extremely frightening thing for us. But I think, luckily, in a way, the Richard connection, in terms of writing the script, and the Sharon Maguire connection, in terms of actually being Shazza from the book and being best friends with Helen, a.k.a. Bridget.
Mark, why did your wife leave you?
Eat up.
Means that you couldn't get a more a filmmaking team that's closer to the spirit of the book.
Well done, Bridge. 4 hours of careful cooking and a feast of blue soup, omelette and marmalade.
Thank you.
I think that deserves a toast, don't you? To Bridget, who cannot cook, but who we love, just as she is. To Bridget, just as she is.
Have you met Miss Jones? Someone said as we shook hands, she was just Miss Jones.